the key point here, which again, the mainstream media won't pay attention to, which is Russia actually claimed to have had very negative and derogatory information about Hillary Clinton. That if they had chosen to release that in the weeks leading up to that November 2016 election, it would have very likely had a devastating effect on her campaign.
Totally. I mean, that she was addicted to tranquilizers.
Yes.
And then you now look at that footage of her at the 9/11 ceremony in New York being sort of staggering towards her van and having to be pushed in there. And now you look at that with different eyes.
That's right.
If that's correct, that she was on tranquilizers. And there was a whole lot of other negative, that she had a strange hysteria, sort of laughing and crying, and what other sorts of negative things?
That essentially the documents that Russia claimed they had portrayed Hillary Clinton as having mental health challenges that would result in fits of laughter and fits of rage. It also pointed out some very specific physical health concerns that apparently leaders within the DNC were discussing amongst each other.
That's right. This wasn't invented intelligence like the Steele dossier. This was supposedly emails
and communication among senior
hacked.
DNC officials
Right.
That Russia claimed to have in their possession. So the point here is that if Putin and Russia aspired to help Trump get elected, which is what the manufactured January 2017 intelligence community assessment says with high confidence, according to Brennan and Clapper, then Putin would have released the most damaging information and emails to help President Trump leading up to that November 2016 election. The fact is, the opposite is true. It was intentionally withheld and not released because they assumed that Hillary Clinton would win that election. And their plan, according to these documents that were found in an investigation the House Intelligence Committee conducted into the CIA's creation of this January 2017 assessment, is that Russia had decided to wait until Hillary Clinton won the election and wait until maybe days or weeks before her inauguration to release these documents once again to sow
destroy
chaos
her presidency
and discord in America and to undermine her presidency before she would even have the opportunity to take the oath of office.
And how ironic that, in fact, that is what America did to itself in this Obama-Hillary conspiracy to undermine Donald Trump after the election.
The American people, I think, have been, and our republic has been most harmed by this. Of course, President Trump went through hell and his family because of this Russia hoax that was manufactured by President Obama and his administration. We saw, the years-long Mueller investigation, 2 impeachments from Congress, the Mar-a-Lago raid on his home by the FBI. You saw multiple members of his family as well as senior officials being investigated. But really, when we take a step back and look beyond that, and we look at the harm that took place to the American people, their faith in the integrity of our republic, this is where you use the word dangerous. This is where the weaponization of the intelligence community can have such a dangerous outcome that is really impossible actually to measure. When we look at a sitting president of the United States and President Obama unhappy with the outcome of the election and making the appearance of a peaceful transition of power,
priding himself on it
over and over and claiming to be the champion of democracy, and yet launching what we now know came from President Obama was a covert mission, essentially, to subvert the will of the American people, create this lie that would challenge the legitimacy of President Trump's election and the 4 years of his administration, resulting and affecting in what was truly a years-long coup. This is why it's so important, and I just keep repeating myself over and over again, because you look at the evidence that we released. We have to look at it within the greater context of what happened in the months leading up to that election, November 2016, and what followed in the years after. in order to understand or get a glimpse into the true implications of this.
Why do you think Barack Obama did that? He'd served 8 years. He was going out on a high. What was he so frightened of with Donald Trump that he needed to sabotage him?
I haven't seen any intelligence that reflects his inner thoughts or intentions with this. But again, I think you can take a step back and just recognize at face value, if Hillary Clinton had won that election, this would not have happened. It could only happen and could only really be motivated by the Obama administration and the president himself being unhappy with the fact that the American people chose President Trump over Hillary Clinton.
A repudiation really of him and his 8 years.
That's right. That's right.
And do you think that when we talked about it being dangerous, that the Russian invasion of Ukraine was, partly due to this? In one sense, it's because Putin saw that Joe Biden was a weak president, I guess. But also this, we see with the Durham Annex, which is the latest or one of the latest drops of declassified material, that shows that it was really the Hillary Clinton campaign with members of the George Soros Foundation who were deliberately seeding this information to force the White House to have a confrontation with Russia. And it really poisoned, I think, Donald Trump's, his intent before he came into office was to try and normalize relations with Russia, which would have been a good thing for the world.
For the cause of peace.
Cause of peace, and allow America to, utilize its efforts on combating China. But instead, we now have America in this proxy war with Russia. Do you think that the Russia collusion hoax was a factor in that?
Again, when you look at the actions and the timeline of what came next after this January 2017 Russia hoax intelligence assessment was created, let me actually step back a little bit. After that December 8th and December 9th, the December 9th National Security Council meeting, very shortly, within days after that meeting occurred, was when President Obama made the announcement that there needed to be heightened sanctions against Russia for interfering in the U.S. election. There are many other examples when you look again at President Obama's rhetoric himself and those around him, and the fires that they were stoking resulted undoubtedly in heightened tensions between the United States and Russia, again, making it a very difficult environment for President Trump to make any progress on what he knew coming in was an important objective for the safety and security of the American people, which was to, again, work towards peace. It's the thing that he is continuing to pursue here now in his second term in office as President of the United States. And I think was a big reason why so many people across the country voted for him, both in 2016 and now here in the 2024 election.
Just talking about Hillary Clinton, some of these documents, the recently declassified Durham Annex from the Durham report from 2023, that shows some absolutely incredible emails. I mentioned between Hillary Clinton's campaign and various Soros people, just spelling out that this was an operation to dirty up Donald Trump and distract from Hillary Clinton's problems.
That's exactly right.
What do you know about that?
If you remember when we go back and Hillary Clinton's emails were really making headlines in a lot of ways and for a lot of reasons.
Her missing emails.
Yes, exactly. And so when people look at the newly declassified Durham appendix, you'll see a number of quite shocking statements in there coming from people like then DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, talking about how, and I'm paraphrasing here, but Hillary Clinton's emails were deleted just in time. Statements like that, references towards some of Hillary Clinton's most senior advisors saying, hey, let's use the Russia play against Trump in order to diminish the attention that's going to Hillary Clinton's emails. And it actually points to statements about how Hillary herself approved one of these plans that was put forward again before her to heighten tensions around this Russia hoax, this alleged Russia collusion with Donald Trump, to draw attention away from her and away from the controversy that was surrounding her at that time. These documents also show that President Obama was briefed on this before the election, and how at that point in time, he talked about how he didn't want his legacy to be tainted by Hillary Clinton and her controversy, and claimed to want to stay out of it. Obviously, at a certain point, he made a different decision, but it really, again, starts to lay the groundwork for how we see at the highest levels of power in our country. Remember, Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State. We see at the highest levels of power in our country how this narrative was very intentionally used, and some intelligence pointing to the use of foreign agents or assets to assist in this narrative that, again, was in essence executed to undermine President Trump's candidacy and to advance Hillary Clinton into the presidency. And
Hillary Clinton, you've had relations with that are not pleasant. I mean, when you ran for the presidency in 2020, she called you a Russian asset. Why did she not like you back then? You were a Democrat.
There are a few reasons, yes. There are a few reasons. Number one, Hillary Clinton, as I said then, was the queen of warmongers.
Right.
So from a fundamental foreign policy view, what she was advocating for the American foreign policy to be versus what I was advocating for could not have been more different and diametrically opposed.
Libya, for instance, when she was chortling about the brutal death of Gaddafi.
Which is just, every time I see that video of her in that interview, really, as you said, we saw and
he died.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He died.
And then she laughs.
Laughing about it.
Yeah.
It's
psychopathic.
It's to think about someone like her assuming the role of the president and commander-in-chief and sitting in the Oval Office is actually quite terrifying when we look at the safety and security of the American people. And I just think about the courageous men and women I've had the privilege of serving alongside in the military, and whose lives are the ones who are put on the line when you have people like her and those who share her views in positions of power to make decisions about war and peace and life and death. So, substantively, my views are diametrically opposed to hers on foreign policy and many other issues. But also back, it was because of that as then I was a vice chair of the Democratic National Committee back in 2016. And, I had started to see from the inside so much of what was wrong within the National Democratic Party, but made a decision at that time where the scales were being tilted heavily for Hillary Clinton by then DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but also seeing how the mainstream media was complicit in this, because even as they touted Hillary Clinton as, and you remember, the most qualified candidate ever to run for president in our nation's history. That's a high bar.
Yes.
That's a very high bar. And yet, when you look at her actual record, they would list off all of these titles, these fancy titles that she's carried, but none of them actually looked at her record of what her policies were as a U.S. Senator, what her votes were, what her actions were around foreign policy that would qualify her to be the most qualified person ever to be commander-in-chief. They never got into any kind of detail or below the surface on her record as Secretary of State either. The kinds of things, Libya is one example. There are many others that you could point to of where her decisions, her advice, her engagements, ultimately, when it comes right down to it, made our country less safe. And so I resigned as vice chair of the DNC at the time, and endorsed Bernie Sanders specifically because they had very, very different views on foreign policy. And it would give me the opportunity and the platform to have a megaphone in order to expose her record because the mainstream media refused to do it. So I have a feeling that in 2020, Hillary Clinton choosing to lob these baseless and slanderous accusations against me.
It's her thing. Russian
It's her thing. And she may have remembered me telling the truth about who she really is and her true record for the years leading up to that point.
You hurt her feelings. And then she got her revenge. Fast forward to you find yourself on the Quiet Skies surveillance program. And I'm, in fact, accidentally met a whistleblower who told you about that. And she had found out that an ally of Hillary Clinton from way back, from her Whitewater days, had seen you on television, on Fox News, on Laura Ingram's show, talking about Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, and decided to put you on the list and make your life a kind of a misery. I think you were stopped or delayed 24 times and given extreme searches as if you were a domestic terrorist.
Yeah. Yes. She found a way to exact her revenge.
So you believe that was Hillary directing
I
that?
hadn't heard that account before. I was certain, however, that it was politically motivated.
Yeah.
There was no other explanation for it other than that. When I spoke to TSA agents in multiple airports who were just doing their jobs, but who, as they went through this extreme and in-depth search of me, and oh, by the way, my husband was also placed on this domestic terror watch list. They were like, why are we doing this with you? You are still serving as a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. You're a former member of Congress. This makes zero sense whatsoever. And hearing that from the folks who are out there on the line every single day further affirmed what I believe to be true, that this could only be real if it were politically motivated. To not only go through these extreme, sometimes 30-minute long, 40-minute long searches before boarding any flight.
Would they go through your luggage?
Every single piece, the lining of my luggage after everything was removed, feeling down my every jacket that I had feeling down the seams of every single inch of my clothing. Again, these guys were doing what they were told to do. I wouldn't want them to be fired for, not doing their job. But when you look at the consequences, again, of this politicization of intelligence, this is another example. And who does it hurt? Well, these folks, these TSA personnel, the air marshals who were told they had to surveil me and follow me and look at how many times did I pick up my phone while I'm in flight? Did I talk to any other people? Did I have any interesting conversations? Was there any movement that I made that seemed a little out of the ordinary? How many times do you get up and go and use the bathroom? I mean, the surveillance during...
Did you know they were following you?
I had kind of noticed a couple of times.
Right.
But I didn't know until later the extent of how many air marshals they required to watch me and who had to type up reports.
To get up on a plane with you and travel with you? From
drop off to move through the airport, to get on the plane, to landing at my destination and out to the curb. The real chilling effect here. And obviously I may be one of the better known people who's been on this list. But unfortunately, there are many Americans who have been targeted either for political reasons or for no reason at all, experiencing what is essentially illegal and unconstitutional surveillance.
It must
by the
feel
government.
very violating.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And this is the I think the real implication here is people will see me on TV criticizing Hillary Clinton's foreign policies, criticizing Kamala Harris's foreign policies, talking about how dangerous either one of them would be as president and commander in chief, and then very publicly seeing how the government and the intelligence is being weaponized against me. It can have a very chilling effect on people to say, oh my gosh, like this is happening to somebody who's in the military and who served as a member of Congress, who ran for president, and she's speaking out and speaking the truth and standing up against these very powerful people. What would happen to, everyday American who maybe goes to a Board of Education meeting and stands up for the right of their daughter to go to school and compete in sports without being afraid for her safety and her well-being, because others are saying, well, no, boys who say that they're girls can go in your bathroom and can run against you on the track field. What happens to that mom or to that dad who stands up and speaks the truth and then is labeled a domestic violent extremist by the Biden administration? So you can see again the chilling effect that this would have and the menacing effect that it has really on sending a message: you better comply or else. You better remain silent or else, because look at what we did to Tulsi Gabbard. Just imagine what we can do to you, and you won't have a platform to speak up about it and expose them for doing exactly what they're doing.
How ironic that you now are the head of the intelligence community. You're the DNI. They never would have imagined that would be the outcome.
I don't know that I did either.
No.